are these people?
I really wanted to share this Kit Knightley article. Off Guardian is another Indie Media Award honoree. I like them a lot. They have been censored off of everywhere. Their YouTube and their Twitter got like a deprecated handle, calling them an unsafe link for a long time. They write a lot of good stuff. Plus, CJ Hopkins publishes there. So what he says is that Donald Trump, he's basically saying that Twitter's a psyop, which we all know. But why is it being used as a tool to convince certain people that they're pro free speech? I don't understand, but let's hear his take. Kit Knightley. Donald Trump is back on the app formerly known as Twitter after almost 4 years in the Truth Social wilderness. He sat down with Elmo for a 3-hour conversation. They're in England. He says, on our side of the pond. What's that?
3-hour tour.
On a 3-hour tour, yes. In which there was a denial of service attack, by the way, to try to stop that conversation from happening. But he says on our side of the pond, Musk is taking every opportunity so he can troll Keir Starmer's government, comparing the UK to something from 1984. Accurately, it must be said. During the Olympics, he chimed in with criticism of the controversial Algerian boxer for being a man beating up women, which, of course, we know that's a lie. Wherever there's controversy, Musk or the PR intern running his Twitter account appears to pour fuel on the fire. That's not to say everything he says is wrong. A lot of it is right, or at least defensible and rational, but I think that itself is an integral part of the construction. Sugar among the salt, aiding in the sale of the overriding narrative. Okay. Quote, Elon Musk, the world's richest man and free speech champion. God, I can hear Misty throwing something at the wall right now for that.
We're fucked.
Yeah.
All right. He says, subtext, there are some oligarchs you can really trust. Of course, we know that. How did it come to this and why? Well, to give you my answer to that, let's go back in time a few years, BE, or before Elon. Under the ancient regime, Twitter purged the alt-news crowd, labeled provably real people as bots, and told dissenters that if you don't like it, go and start your own platform. The trouble with that was that's exactly what they did. Newer, smaller versions of Twitter began to appear.
Substack newsletter near you.
Well, sort of, but newer versions appeared on the other side, Truth Social and Gab and so on and so on. And you've got Blue Sky and Post, and now Facebook Meta has Threads. Right? He says, when you're an all-encompassing supranational corporate governmental monster addicted to surveillance and control, that's kind of counterproductive because now you can't hear what's being said and you can't steer the conversation. What's the point of spending billions creating a massive surveillance network if you keep banning all the people you want to surveil? That doesn't really make much sense. What good is it spending the budget of a medium-sized country on influencers, bots, and shills and then stopping people from seeing them? No, banning doesn't work. It just puts people outside your system of influence and control. Outside the system is bad, and they need everyone inside. They don't care if you're praising or criticizing, loving or hating, defending its existence or denying it. Everything's acceptable as long as you do it where they can see you. They needed to invite those banished souls back inside. Again, Alex Jones is back. Nick Fuentes is back. A lot of the banned people are back. Of course, Jared Beck is not back for exposing that the Democratic Party is a club that can pick their candidate in a back room with a cigar smoke, filled with cigar smoke. And of course, they just did. But he's not allowed. Garland Nixon isn't allowed to access his account either, apparently. But in short, they wanted to bring the banned people back and patch over the hole they'd made. They needed to rehabilitate Twitter, enter Elon Musk and X or whatever. All right. Natalie. Yes, Rumble is profiling us, as Whitney Webb very astutely pointed out, and as you're aware of. Yes, because it's a Peter Thiel involved organization. And yes, they're involved with Palantir. and they're profiling and they're learning who the dissidents are. They can't say the things that are said on YouTube, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right. It's all about creating a controlled opposition. The contrived binary between the good and social media, between the good social media platforms whose CEOs attend congressional hearings and simper about social responsibility, and bad social media platforms whose CEOs post rude memes and refuse to cooperate with government requests for censorship. The safe space versus the free-for-all, or at least the pretense of free-for-all, but we'll get to that. From the moment Musk acquired Twitter, the rebrand was on. Alt-media journalists were invited to inspect Twitter's top-secret files and came away with some shocking revelations, including that Twitter engaged in visibility filtering or shadow banning and algorithmic censorship of anti-establishment people and opinions. We already knew that. Twitter enabled the Pentagon to operate sock puppet accounts for running psyops. Oh yeah, we already knew that. And national governments used to ask Twitter to remove stuff, and sometimes they did. Phew, who knew, right? It always amazes me how much traction they get by simply telling people an incredibly watered-down version of what we already know. I guess because we're all so pathetically grateful to hear even a small amount of semi-truth coming from official sources. But the Twitter files were just the start. Further displays of overt pro-free speech behavior followed. Most recently including unbanning Trump and announcing the closure of Twitter's Brazil office, rather than complying with government censorship. And of course, now, yesterday, Brazil shut down Twitter in the country. All of this has contributed to the birth of a cult of personality around Elon as the supposed champion of free expression, with Twitter itself labeled the last bastion of free speech. This started like the moment that he bought the platform. We saw Elon bots showing up and praising him and talking about, look, they were the Teslarati, we called them beforehand. Like this group of sycophantic reporters, quote unquote, hangers on, glommers that made themselves ingratiated to him and elevated their own public profiles as a result. In the wake of the so-called assassination attempt on Donald Trump, correct phrasing, the rallying cry of the Musk worshippers was, "Thank God for Twitter, or we'd never have known the truth." You mean that it was a psyop and that he was never shot at, allegedly? So you get memes like this, which is insane. The branding is clear. Musk is the people's billionaire, the pick-me mogul who's not like the other oligarchs. You don't need me to explain how useful this dynamic is in controlling mass opinion. It's creating organized religion for the atheist generation. Tenets of faith, no different in purpose and far tackier in presentation. I don't know, man. Those robes and funny hats are pretty fucking tacky, man.
It's also such like a weird libertarian fix on everything where it's like the system's terrible, but what we really need is another billionaire,
more
to
capitalism,
make a completely different new system that like works differently than it did before, but still kind of works the same. And you know what I mean? Where it's like it's their classic, well, the free market, bro. You know, like people just leave. Like, okay, sure, we could also just regulate and put, rules in place that actually make it to where it's not completely predatory and actually is protected speech on there, but whatever.
Yeah, we got to regulate the platforms then with government people, and I don't necessarily want government people monitoring Twitter either, because we've seen how that worked out.
Right. Yeah. No, it would have to be through the courts. There would have to be a system.
Right. Where they have to have, if they want access to certain data, they have to petition it legally, and there has to be a transparency and, just cause, it's everything else. But
Right, but then class actions could take place. There'd be ways.
Yep.
It's not doable.
Right. But
so
Kit asks here now.
I don't trust this government to make it have that happen. But,
again, this is Kit Knightley from Off Guardian, not Kit Clarenberg and not Kit Cabello. We have a lot of Kits in independent media, amazingly enough.
People really like the Hoff, bro.
You know, I guess, yeah, people's parents were fucking in 1984 or something. But all right. Michael, I don't know. Again, that's the second Knight Rider reference tonight because you hit Mr. Feeney.
Fired up.
Right? All right. Importantly, we should ask, has Twitter even really improved now that it's X? No, it hasn't. The left-wing Musk critics are right about that. Thank you. Maybe there is an increased amount of overt racism and race baiting, or maybe now it's just promoted. Either way, there's no ignoring it. What equally can't be ignored is the massive proliferation of ads and porn bots and the same GIFs and videos clogging every discussion. All right. Monetization has led to an avalanche of accounts, farming engagement with blatant clickbait, rage bait, cute bait, just all the bait. And all the while, these what? Well, not all the bait. You're missing one bait.
That other bait.
You're missing the bait of masters. But all the while, these newly unpleasant facets of X, and don't forget about the crypto bots, they're also out there, are being brandished by the pro-censorship left and used to discredit the very idea of free speech in general. The absolute freedom of speech just means racism and porn, they get to say. We need more regulation. Now, there's an argument that all the bait could be considered the acceptable price of free speech if free speech was actually what we ever got, but it's not. For some reason, since the Twitter files released in combination with Musk's unearned reputation as a free speech absolutist, people have assumed that Twitter, now X, no longer allows shadow bans, psyops, or cooperates with government-backed censorship.
No.
Right.
No.
But they do.
Never.
They very obviously do. Case in point, this publication, Off Guardian. We have a Twitter X account with almost 61,000 followers. Back when Twitter was still Twitter, any link to our website was subject to an auto warning that it might be potential spam. We were also intermittently shadow banned, which obviously had a very negative effect on our reach, although our tweets could still get thousands of retweets and likes. When Twitter became X, the auto warning was removed, which was nice, but our reach diminished massively. Thanks, Linda Yaccarino. We are now told all the time that people haven't seen our tweets or links in years. A successful tweet of ours gets maybe 200 likes. Most remain in double figures.
Inconceivable.
So for our account, at least, uncensored X is no kind of improvement. Again, we mentioned Indie Media Award honoree C.J. Hopkins, who has written about this PSYOP himself in Off Guardian, was temporarily labeled a distributor of adult content and hidden behind warnings, while dozens of OnlyFans girls can be found in almost any reply chain shilling their wares. Links in... That's right. Links in bio. This is quite obvious visibility filtering in action, and all the truly anti-establishment thinkers are subject to it. Steve Poikonen over at AM Wake Up and Slow News Day is convinced that AM Wake Up is now a term that if anyone tweets at or from AM Wake Up, that automatically gets a porn bot. It's all about speech, not reach, ensuring all independent thought is quarantined off in its own little virtual free speech cages. I call them little bubbles. You know, we're putting glass jars in glass bubbles. Instead of banning the voices they don't want to speak, they just lock them up in soundproof rooms where they can scream their lungs out, and only the FBI agents set to monitor them can hear, and only bots designed to control them will respond. Now, clearly, that's preferable to going to prison for posting anti-immigrant memes, like Sarah Wilkinson is. But should free speech really be graded on that curve? On that curve? No. Nevertheless, that's a situation in which we find ourselves. And again, Kit is based in the UK, so he is very much at risk here. So what we're left with is two versions of free speech to choose from, neither of which is actual free speech. The battle lines are drawn up, and either you're with the government or you're with Elon, an entirely fake war between overt censorship and covert censorship. They won't allow a third way like everything else these days.
Look at the gaslight.
Yes, look at that gaslight. It is quite bright. Again, Kit, Off Guardian, Indie Media Award honorees, CJ Hopkins. You know, these are the best of the best of the best, and they're ignored and shadow banned and suppressed to shit because of it. As are we. So that's why we ask you to support independent media and support INN with a contribution. It does take some money to make this thing go. We do have to pay for streaming software. We have a graphic design tool that we pay for called Canva, where we make all of our thumbnails and graphics like this one. So if you go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network or Cash App $Indie News Network, or you can give us a Rumble rant, or you can donate also on Rockfin. And I see Hemp Car did that. Thank you so much. We got a $2 Rockfin. What do they call that? We go Super Ray, as our friend Pasta used to say. Musk made most off of COVID and is the Pentagon's #1 contractor. Not to mention he wants to drill a hole in our heads with Neuralink. His Twitter icon is the pic of him on Halloween with the devil red goat armor. That's a little creepy. Yes.